Hey, and we are live with Juliana Vida. That is, oh wait, I'm sorry. Go Army, beat Navy, right? Oh wait, that's next year. We did win this year, right?
Oh, that's such a creative answer, Mike.
I haven't been able to say it too often, so I do. So Juliana, super cool, awesome. I met her last year at Splunk, right?
Yep.
Navy veteran.
Yep.
And Chief Technical Advisor for Public Sector at Splunk, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Thanks for joining us today. I'm really excited. I've been looking forward to this conversation.
Me too, Mike. I when you originally were looking for people to talk to, I signed up for a time slot, and I was like, holy moly, he's filled all through February, and now here we are, and I can't believe it. So the day is finally here. It's great to be here.
So I guess let's start. I mean, I think people would benefit learning like your story from the Navy to Splunk. Can you share a little bit about that?
Sure. I have a very unusual career path, which I think is more and more common now than it was probably 5 or 10 years ago, with a very clear career path for military people. But I'll just start. I'll go briefly. So I graduated from high school. Couldn't decide what I wanted to do. I have a twin sister, and she had, on a fluke, walked into a recruiting office and joined the Navy. And I was like, what are you doing? I had no idea that those opportunities were even out there. So I joined the Navy with her as a linguist. And we went to boot camp together. We were in the same company together. We went to language school together. We studied Russian at Defense Language Institute. She went off and took a different path, but I graduated first in my class. Mm-hmm. And from that, applied for the Naval Academy, and to my surprise, got in. So got in on the first try and spent 4 years at the Academy. And then I chose surface warfare. So the year that I graduated, 1994, women were first allowed in combatant units. Congress had changed the law that previously prevented women from going into combat roles. So I was fortunate. I went to a destroyer for 2 years. Then I switched to aviation, flew helicopters for about 12 years. And deployed a bunch of times, and then ended up in the Pentagon, which
hold on a second. Let's stop at the Pentagon because I got some cool questions for you. So number one, I'm a DLI graduate too, Korean. So so I went to Korean 97, 98. So big fan of DLI.
About a decade ahead of you, but love DLI, and I've been back a couple times, and it looks the same.
Oh my God. And then number two, I got to ask, being one of the first women, there's stories about like Navy chiefs and officers and swearing, and being one of the first women on a destroyer. What was that like?
Actually, I was very fortunate. First of all, there were three other classmates of mine from the Academy. I'm sorry, 2 classmates and then another woman who were with me. So we had each other's backs. That was one thing. Second thing was, it was a brand new ship. It was the second ship in the class, the new Arleigh Burke destroyer, DDG-52, USS Barry, and brand new at the time. And so it had all the newest technology, and it was clean, and all that stuff. Had been winning lots of awards. And the most important thing was our leadership. A gentleman named Jim Stavridis, who was then a commander, but is now, he was retired now, but he was a 4-star. And he was many people know him from his different COCOM roles. And now he's like on the morning talk shows all the time, and he's written a bunch of books. He was our commanding officer, and his leadership guidance was, you treat these women like you treat all other junior officers. Some are going to be great. Some are going to make mistakes. There's not going to be any discussion about, oh, the women get this and the men don't get that. He set that expectation and that bar early on, and because everybody respected him, it just worked. I was very, very fortunate. And also fortunate, it was before 9/11, and ships were still like going into ports and stuff just to have fun. I mean, there was important missions tied to them too, but the world was different. It was a different place, and it was awesome and fantastic. And I'm so grateful I was assigned to the ship then.
That's amazing. And so to have that perspective and then to go to the Pentagon, how many years in were you before you went to the Pentagon, which a lot of people are like, to the Pentagon?
It doesn't. Well,
it could be an incredible assignment.
It was my career pivot. This is why I'm in the role that I'm at now at Splunk, is because I was assigned to the Pentagon. I just happened to be, so I was a commander select when I got to the Pentagon. So later in my career, past my department head tour as an aviator, toward the end of, I was getting ready to retire. It was late in my career. And I really think people should spend time in the Pentagon earlier in their career, but nobody asked me, because it's great experience, and I'm glad I had it. So again, another divine providence, the detailer assigned me to be just the executive assistant, the secretary, the strap hanger, note taker for the Navy's chief information officer, the civilian equivalent. And I was like, what's a chief information officer? What's the global information grid? Because that's what it was called back then. I mean, I knew nothing about IT, but I quickly learned that really, to be successful, and this is a lesson that I've taken forward, it's just about being inquisitive, being a good teammate, being reliable, working hard, learning new things. And I learned I was actually pretty good at that. And so that's where I pivoted into IT and technology. So thank you, detailer.
I love it. I mean, it's so amazing how events happen in our lives that completely change, pivot where we're going. Surface warfare one day, next day, hey, you're going to be the EA to the person responsible for all Navy IT, which means you sit in on every IT meeting, you take notes, you set up every meeting, like you were as much into it as that individual was, I'm pretty sure.
Yes.
In a lot of ways.
Yes.
How long did you do that for?
Well, I worked as an EA probably for the first 2 years. And then my boss started realizing, maybe it wasn't even that long, he started realizing I had a knack for this stuff and I was a good relationship builder. And so he put me in branch head roles. So I went from being the secretary to being the branch head in charge of information assurance and enterprise architecture and all these core functions of a chief information officer. And next thing you know, so I was in uniform for 4 years, then I retired. And after I retired, there was a woman who then took the role as the civilian CIO for the Navy. She hired me to be her deputy. So that was my deputy CIO role. And I couldn't believe it, GS-15 deputy CIO. And it was really quite, I just couldn't believe it. It was really surreal to me, but I embraced it. Like I said, I took every opportunity I could to learn things. And I kind of scratched my head and I realized, I was like, hey, this IT stuff is probably a good career path to follow once I retire. Duh. and so that led to joining Gartner. I worked at a company called Gartner for about 2.5 years in an advisory capacity with CIOs across the federal government, and now Splunk.
So I gotta guess, how much, like when you were, first of all, to go from secretary EA to branch head, I can imagine were there any hurt feelings, or had you just built a relationship with the people that okay, good.
That's a good question. Yeah, there probably were some hurt feelings, but at that point, I really had built. People liked working with me. I'm old enough now, and I'm confident in myself to just say that I'm a good teammate. I am reliable. I am kooky, and I'm Italian, and I'm kind of fun, and and I think people really enjoyed that fresh viewpoint that I brought into the Pentagon. Like you said, it's you can really stand out when you just bring your authentic self, especially to an organization or a company or a geographic location that is just used to working in the salt mine. And thank you, Greg. And,
IBM, and those Splunk t-shirts blow away IBM t-shirts. Just throw that out there, Greg.
I almost chose the other t-shirt, but I wasn't sure I should go that far. The other one that's my favorite is taking the SH out of IT. That one's maybe next time.
So side note for everybody out there, if you haven't seen Splunk t-shirts, Google it, figure out how to, I didn't know they existed until I started looking at it. I was like, oh my God, how do these IT people get such a sense of humor and get so original? They're amazing. So
good stuff.
So you kind of just fell into IT, realized that you were good at it.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have to take any, did you earn any certs while you were still in the Navy, or any focused training, or did you just learn it through osmosis, through experience?
Yeah. I do not have any certifications.
Mm-hmm.
I started the CIO certification program at National Defense University.
Mm-hmm.
But so I took 2 classes. I took one class that was called Web 2.0. Mm-hmm. This was back when, not way back when, but kind of in the early days of people understanding that when you use the internet, it learns about you, and it starts to send you ads for things that you like. That's Web 2.0 technology, and that was pretty new back when I was taking that class, maybe 10 years ago. So I took that class, and then I took another class in enterprise architecture. And after that, I stopped taking the formal training because I just couldn't make time for it. I mean,
right.
It's just busy in the Pentagon. I mean, that might be an excuse, but I also learned, this is another thing that I've learned about myself over time, is that not everyone needs a certification or a degree. It's really about how can you apply the knowledge that you have in executing on a mission or delivering outcomes. And I learned that I was doing a good enough job delivering on positive outcomes without having have the credentials behind me. That is not to say that credentials are not important. What I'm trying to say is not everyone needs those credentials or bona fides.
If you have the right people underneath you that could advise, that have the credentials, the experience, and do the work. But I would hazard to guess that most people would not get those positions without the personal relationships. Like if you were a surface warfare officer and you said, hey, Navy, you never went to work in that secretary role, and you said, hey, Navy, I'd like to be in charge of that branch over there.
Yeah.
Navy would have been like, you're nuts.
Yeah.
But
unless you know the right people.
Right. Or they know you, even more importantly, right? So we've got a question. How did you get to Gartner upon retirement?
Yes, I love that story because for me personally, that was a huge pivot and confidence builder. So I'm just going to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. I was hired as a GS-15 after I retired, which is good. Mm-hmm. But I'm a climber. I want to be moving up and like doing the next thing. Well, what's the next thing? Become a senior executive. So I want to be an SES. I applied for a bunch of jobs across the federal government, mostly in DOD because that's my comfort zone and I'm human and we like to do what we know. But I applied for jobs at Department of Commerce and Energy and U.S. Agriculture and stuff. But it was, and I wasn't getting them. But in the DOD, especially the Department of the Navy, there were 2 particular jobs that I applied for and one that I made to the final round. It was myself and another gentlemen that were the 2 final candidates. And when I didn't get that job, which I should have had, I mean, I seriously was already doing the job. I just didn't have the title. I kind of looked at the writing on the wall and I said, maybe they're just not that into you. And maybe you're not as valuable to this organization as you think. And I was a Gartner client. So what that meant was I was going to Gartner events, reading their research, engaging with their analysts, building relationships with people at Gartner. And I'm telling you, Mike, literally the day that I found out I didn't get the Navy SES job, I got a phone call from my Gartner representative's boss. She knew I was looking for a new job because I was leveraging Gartner for help with writing my resume and interviewing. I was tapping into them for support. So they knew I was looking. And she said, do you ever think about coming to Gartner? And I almost fell off the chair. I was like, wait, you want me? Because Gartner is like the gold standard for technology research company. Yeah. And I really valued their the company and the brand and everything. And I was like, yeah, okay. Because I always thought my life would be all government, which is good and fine, but I needed something different. I was kind of mad at what was going on with my inability to get this SEF. She called me. I said, yes, I'd love to pursue that opportunity, and got the job. So it was building relationships. It was showing enthusiasm for Gartner's product. It was being open to learning and engaging in their roundtable discussions and talking with their analysts that what they saw in me was a person who was ready to learn more about their company and could be a great ambassador for them because I was such a huge proponent. So that's how I got that job.
What I love about your story is it wasn't transactional, meaning you didn't reach out to Gartner because you wanted to work at Gartner. You reached out because you were interested in the company. You wanted to build relationships.
Yep.
You wanted advice from people. Like you weren't trying to find a job there.
Right. No.
You built the relationships, the job materialized. I tell people luck is hard work plus opportunity.
Yeah.
So that's a fantastic story. Okay, so that's enough about that company.
Enough about it.
Let's get to one of my most favorite cool tech companies, Splunk.
Yeah.
So I bet you most people, what is Splunk?
Okay. Splunk is a data and analytics software company. We are a software company. We are, yes, Jose. We have grown. Splunk is, because we're cool and we have cool t-shirts and we're out of Silicon Valley and we present ourselves differently to the world than a lot of other companies do, especially to the federal government. People think we're a startup. Splunk's been around for 18 years. We went public in 2012, legit NASDAQ company with stock price, and we're very mature and robust. We started out as an IT log management tool. Basically, Splunk was created, our creators created us because they realized that there's all this data around in the world, and there's an avalanche of data. There's so much data, people don't know what to do with it. Why? Because it's hard to capture data that's in spreadsheets and databases and make it all neat and nice and all that. So they created this data company that sucks in data in any format that it's generated in. So machine data with machines talking to each other and coming from the internet and coming from sensors, and does advanced analytics on it so that people can make decisions. That's how the company started. Now we're a full platform. What do I mean by that? When you think of Google, you think of Google as a search platform. It does a lot of things for you. You can search, you can find, you can learn, you can, build applications. That's what Splunk does for data. And we are up there with, the other big software companies. I don't want to name any, but we're up there in the what is our CEO call it, the rarefied air of software companies who have made it to a certain level of revenue that we're a player. So
can I go to Splunk and search stuff from the outside, or do you need to get a license of some kind?
Well, we have free training. So we have training that we provide free for veterans and others. And if you download that, if you go to Splunk.com and search on free training, you download Splunk, you now have an instance of Splunk on your machine. Then you can start to play with it. Yes.
Oh,
but
cool.
But if you're not taking advantage of the free training, then yes, you either need to be a customer or be in a pilot program, or be working with, someone at Splunk who is helping you learn how to use it. There are different ways that you can get it, but you can't just, I don't think you can just Google it and download it.
Yeah, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, because I remember asking this question years ago. And I always looked at Splunk as an open source information tool, meaning the way I understood it is 17% of information is indexed on the internet. And Splunk, that the stuff we're searching on Google or any other platforms is 17% of all the data out there associated with IP addresses and all this machine data, video feeds and everything. And what I thought I understood Splunk to be is you could search for anything and it goes out and searches the whole thing, kind of. Am I kind of right on that? As an open source?
It is open. So we are.
Tool?
It is open source, and we have what's called open open APIs. We basically work with other technologies.
Mhm.
So if you are a Microsoft customer and you have Splunk, Splunk can pull in Microsoft data. And
Right.
you as a customer would have to, you say, I want you to pull in Microsoft data.
Right.
Do it. But Splunk's technology is so open that it works on bringing in data from all other software companies, other cloud platforms. It's funny, one of the things I've learned, this is a bit of a segue, but one of the things I've learned coming to software, this is my first software company, so I'm learning a lot, is that we're frenemies with a lot of these technology companies. In some areas we compete, and in some areas we partner.
Right.
And in my mind, I'm like, well, wait a second, that doesn't make sense. But it has to be that way these days, because there are so many technology companies out there that do very specific things or do everything, like Amazon Web Services, or the big companies. We would be dumb, and we would not be very business savvy if we just blocked ourselves off from those companies and didn't work together.
Yeah, no, I hear you. So I'm a huge fan, obviously. Although I need to
thank you, Mike.
Huh?
Oh, Splunk. You're a fan of Splunk.
Both. But I also need to talk to you about getting a cool Splunk T-shirt to wear on some of these.
You got it.
But maybe when things open up and we can go have coffee or something.
Yeah.
So Splunk, big company, and we all know like AI, data, everything is where the world's going.
Yeah.
You're the chief technical advisor for the public sector.
Yeah.
So what does that mean?
Okay. I have started telling people I'm heavy on the advisor, not so heavy on the technical. We have a whole company, because I've told you, and I'm unabashed about this. I don't have a computer science degree. I don't have certifications. What I do have is experience as a warfighter and a user to try and make sense of all this technology stuff in terms that I can understand. So
I'm sorry, my daughter's low crawling.
Oh.
These kids are so good.
Oh my gosh.
They're Army kids.
I wish I could
literally low crawling to go out in the snow. I'm sorry.
No trouble.
So heavy on.
Okay. So what I do, the reason they hired me essentially is to help. We have a lot of really deep technical people at Splunk. We do. Our engineers, our product people, the big brains that come up with all the technology and the advanced capabilities, advanced analytics. But a lot of the world and a lot of the government still doesn't know who we are, and still doesn't know that we are more than that log management company or a cybersecurity company, because we have good capability in cybersecurity. So my job is to talk with people about the real ways that they can use technology to advance their mission. So because somebody posted it in a chat there a second ago, which was basically translating data into human speak. Yeah, not everyone can do that. And this is one of the things that I learned I'm actually good at when I was at the Pentagon, because I wasn't a technology person, but I had to figure out a way to get that narrative, those words, that language into documents that the tank cared about in the Pentagon, for example, or that Congress cares about, and now that our customers care about. So if I'm going in to talk to a CIO of an agency, for example, that person may very well be like I was, not from a technology background. Yeah. They might be from a business background. So I go in and try to help them say, this is how the technology can help you advance your business. And so it's an advisory role. And I get to talk in the press. I get to talk to WTOP a lot, Federal News Networks, and other print media, people like you. This morning, I talked with some congressional staffers. Yesterday, I was on a CENTCOM data symposium. So there's all these different ways that I can get Splunk's message out to people to just up-level the understanding of technology in general, Splunk specifically, to continue digital transformation in the modern world.
So it sounds like it's really, number one, it sounds like it's a perfect job for you. The relationships driven, with solving problems in the IT world. So do you have like, so it sounds like it's an account management type role, like the senior account management role for the public sector. Is that kind of?
I'm in a weird role. So there are only 3 people that have my title, 4 people in the whole company of Splunk that have the title that I have. I'm the CTA for public sector. We have one for our America's commercial business, not non-government business. and we have one in Europe and one that kind of supports the whole corporation at the corporate level. So I don't fit a specific job function.
Right.
There's a little bit of marketing because I work with some of these. When I speak at an event, sometimes we pay for that. Splunk pays for that slot to be able to, and I'm not telling you anything that isn't publicly publicly available. But I'm really more of an evangelist, let's say, talking in real terms with people about technology, because we just as a country, we are still not as literate about data and about how it can help make the world better as we should be by now.
Right.
And I just try to keep it real.
And I think that really what we're seeing is that how we leverage data differentiates organizations.
Absolutely.
Incredibly.
Absolutely.
I mean, I had a conversation yesterday with Databricks and learning what they do.
Enemy.
Yeah. So Rory is a cool Army veteran. So, but I didn't know what they were.
Yeah.
And then I look and they're like the number 5 startup.
Yeah.
Startup. So we're not competing, but but the data and how we access everything, I mean, it was just so incredible to use. So what does your day look like? I mean, you talked about the speaking at events, going to meetings and stuff. Like how much of your day is meetings?
Yeah. I wish I could tell you. But I will say it's just a smattering. Just like everyone, I'm stuck to Zoom. It's driving me nuts because, as you can tell, I'm a huge extrovert and I need to be with people. And I was traveling and going to speak at events and meeting with customers, or I do a lot of, just being on panels and keynotes and a lot of that. And I get a lot of energy from that. And it's satisfying. It helps me be more clear in my communications. Those skills have atrophied a little bit, but I spend a lot of time on Zoom. I would say out of 100% of my time, probably 50% of it is internal to Splunk. I'm talking with sales teams about how they can use different language in talking with CIOs than maybe they're used to. Or I talk with the other members I'm on the leadership team for the public sector. So I talk with other sales leaders and our business development leaders in the leadership team about what else can we do to empower our teams to drive the business? Because we're business.
Yeah.
How can we help motivate them? How can we help empower them to take the right messaging to our customers? So 50% of what I do is probably internal. The rest of it is I'm either speaking at an event or preparing to speak at that event or following up from speaking at that event with either writing up my notes from what I heard people say and, this DoD leader had a really cool thing to say about software factories and I pass that on to the sales team, or I'm working with marketing about how can we make better use of these events in the future. There's just a lot there. I don't like to just show up at an event and start talking, even though I could do that, but that's not very professional and it's not really clean. So there's a lot of preparation. I pride myself on putting preparation into hitting the right talking points, making sure I'm being authentic, but also sticking to the Splunk message because that's what I'm there to do. And then I also honestly, and thank God my boss lets me do this because it's smart to do, I engage on social media. I do that throughout my workday because that's where the world is. The world is not going to conferences and showing up at events and taking meetings in their office. They're engaging here. And so I spend a lot of time doing that too.
I'm sure you build such incredible relationships just because people are used to seeing you be you on social media. And kudos to your boss for really recognizing that we buy from who we trust.
Yep.
And trust comes from relationships. And if you're just selling, you're not going to get there. But when people learn to trust, people, then that transfers to the organization as well.
Yep.
So, all right. So my typical executive level question, what time does your day start? And what time does your day end? Okay.
I have gotten better about not waking up and going to email right away because I want to.
What time do you wake up?
Oh, these days? Not till like 7.
Okay.
And I feel like that's such a luxury. Like
That is, I know.
I'd get up at 5 and I'd be in the Pentagon at 7, like ready to go. No, I don't do that. I get up at like 7. I have coffee. I try very hard to do something other than work until about 8 o'clock.
Okay.
I've just learned I think better and cleaner that way, and I need that as a break. So I really start work at about 8. These days, I probably don't stop working till about 9 p.m. But the beauty is I can kind of take breaks when I want. You know, no one's checking. I don't have to take time off to go to the dentist. You know, I can just go to the dentist.
Right.
Or go to the gym or whatever. But I honestly do put in, I do put in an honest, 10 to 12 hours a day. And it's exhausting, but I feel good about it. It's work I love.
So that was the exact answer I expected. I'm seeing that every executive, I talked to Gregory, I talked to Justin, I talked to and they're all the same schedule. And I asked that question now because I want people to understand that if you want the executive life when you get out of the military, that's what your competition is doing. Yeah. And I think the more important part of what you said is you said it's fulfilling. And I think that comes from something Jessica Reynolds said last week. She said, she commented on a post and she said, work-life balance is easier when your work and life are a lot closer, meaning when you're really passionate about what you do, it doesn't feel so much as work. And then it's just about finding your balance, which is not starting until 8. It's going to do a workout. It's, dentist or whatever.
Yeah.
Is that a fair?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And if you would have told me, so when I was at GS15 looking for these SES jobs, I guess I just wasn't savvy enough. I wasn't aware enough, or I just didn't know enough people, inside the government or outside in industry to know what you just said. If you want an executive level job, you need to be willing to work hard and long. But the beauty is when that work is just like fun, and engaging and inspiring. I mean, I love that I spend a lot of my day smiling and laughing and being myself. Yep. It is the worst thing when you're just like slogging along and just can't stand it. I can't wait for 8 o'clock to come around because I'm like, good, now I can get it on. I can respond to my emails and I can see what's going on in the calendar. Not every day is that exciting and I'm not that enthused, but most days are. Most days I feel that way.
I'm the same way now that I, own my own company. It's exactly what I have to be passionate about it. And I start a little earlier and I tend to kind of end a little earlier, but I also if I don't have anything going on, I hop in and do more work because, I'm building something that I love. So thank you for that. So I guess a couple questions because we're already over 30 minutes and it's like gone. One, if people have questions about Splunk or if they're transitioning and they have a tech background or whatever, do you mind if they reach out directly to you on LinkedIn?
No.
Okay, you don't mind. Good.
I may not have all the answers. I may say something like, go look at Splunk.com, honestly, because when you go look at just how we present ourselves, just our colors and our branding, and that's where people can really dig in. I'm just one person.
You said that to the right person. That's my answer. Come to me with, I want. Do your work first.
Yep.
And then make it easy for me to say yes.
Yep.
So that's number one. Number two, I guess the next part, let's see, do we have a question? Here's a question, then we'll go to my number two. Is it weird to tell developers to dumb down an application or interface to make it more user-friendly? Do you get the look?
To answer that question, I don't actually have that conversation with developers and applications, but what I do talk with the management level folks, and I might say something like that. You might want to think about making this more accessible to the average person. And yes, I do get the look. They're like, we're Splunk. This is what we do. We develop really, really advanced analytics. And so they probably they just go like this to me and they say, yeah, go do your technology evangelism thing and let us do our job.
But I mean, I think the key part of that is you also probably have to tell them on occasion how to explain it in a way that the client will understand and want it, to help meet because if the client doesn't understand it.
Right. Well, that's what I actually try to work with their internal sales teams with, and our SE teams, is I empower them with, this is how to make it real to your customer. Remember, they're just a person like I was, they may not have a PhD in data science. So when you talk to them, think of them but that's where I engage, at the sales level, and not necessarily at the developer level, but same message, just to a different audience.
Right. I could see that. So, okay. So the number 2 final question, what is your advice for anybody getting out of the military? Like, what would be the number 1 or top 2 things that you would tell them to do to find their success, not necessarily your path?
Yeah. One piece of advice, you have to talk to other people and not try to do it all yourself. Talk to people that have been there and done that and succeeded, been there and done that and they're still struggling. That is really the way. And that's not to say that someone is going to get you a job, but someone is going to share a piece of information you didn't have. Maybe that's about how to negotiate a salary. Maybe that's about just giving you the confidence that you can go do something different. You don't have to be worried about being homeless and jobless necessarily. And because you listen to other people's stories about how they made it, and that can just inspire you. But you have to talk to other people. And I can't emphasize that enough. That's my one piece of advice.
Awesome. And I see that obviously all the time. People decide there's something. I'm like, did you ever talk to someone in that job to see what people in that job think?
Yep.
They kind of get a vote.
Yep. Can I just add one thing?
You can add whatever you want.
One thing I hear all the time, and I was one of these people. People will say, I don't know what I want to do, but I know I don't want to go into sales. And I say, do you know anybody in sales? No. Have you ever done sales? No. Do you know anything about it? Well, no. And so, not that I think people should go into sales, but I think that closed mindset, it's the beginning of a downward spiral of what else are you shutting out that might be an opportunity that you never thought of. I would just encourage anybody who's listening, just don't rule anything out until you've talk to people who actually do it, and let them inform your decisions about where you want to spend your time and not spend your time looking for a job. Keep your mind open.
I love it. And you and I both know that the lifeblood of any organization is revenue.
Yep.
So if you want to be a successful executive, you have to be able to explain how you're going to increase revenue at some point.
Yep.
And that's sales. So, and sales doesn't mean cold calling everybody all the time.
Nope.
A lot of times it could just be building relationships and solving problems, which is what a lot of people like to do in the military, but they just say no sales.
That's right. You and I are selling right now. I mean, that's the big secret, everyone. Yeah. But it's because because we're our authentic selves and we're building relationships. I mean, that's the key, and it's fun.
Yeah, it truly is. When you're able to build relationships, everything flows through them there. So, yeah. Juliana, we are just about at 40 minutes. If I knew it was going to fly, I 100% mean this. We got to do this again.
Yeah.
Once the area starts opening up again, we should do a networking event.
Yep. I'm in 100%.
Let's do it. I'm in. And I'm like you. I miss the travel and like the personal interaction, like the face-to-face part of it. So thank you for everything you do. Thank you for the advice today. And please stay safe.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Bye.